Alors, je vous remercie d'abord en français pour le travail et aussi, pas seulement le travail comme tu fais, par exemple, Sébastien, c'était génial, la présentation, mais aussi le travail d'être ici, d'écouter, c'est le travail. Okay? Je vous remercie pour le travail important et aussi pour l'invitation de venir ici. Je vais présenter en anglais, mais après on peut aussi poser les questions en français. Okay, my contribution to this conference is to introduce the philosophical approach, the philosophy, also the method, the lens called Childism. It is a new research area in itself that is developing through many different disciplines. And what Childism does is it broadens our understanding of power relations in both scholarship as well as society by addressing the concept of something that is like a child, you know, childlike or childish, or the word child itself. So it is a notion that goes beyond individual adult-child relations. And it's looking at much more broader social dynamics. Is it okay so far? You understand me when I speak? Okay. So I am a childist, and I want to clarify that this is the first. That's it's fine. So the first clarification I make is the word childism and also enfantisme is also used to mean the opposite. It's used also to mean adultism. So first, conceptual clarification, that is not the childism I am talking about. I use the word adultism to talk about adult oppression of children. So childism, as me, John Wall, Hannah Warming, the colleagues who call themselves childists, are there to mean this, to develop the word in its transformative sense, like feminism or decolonialism, for example. And this debate on, you know, which word it should be and so on, the position is that using the word childism and also infantilization, which I will talk about, using that to mean oppressive behavior of adults or adult structures is in itself adultist. So we want to reclaim the word child as a transformative word, you know, and that is why we are using it in this way. So it's going to critique adultism, rethink power relations to foster inclusion, empowerment, rather than perpetuating oppression. And I would understand also your approach, you know, what you presented, and just that this conference on misopédie takes place as a childist intervention. So this is already childism to analyze misopédie, because without understanding the problem, we will not be able to, you know, find what are ways to transform. So in my work, I have been also using this in various ways and various methodological ways, which I will talk about. But first, the childist approach, and different colleagues, we have different approaches to what childism is, but we all agree that being an adult as a benchmark or having societies built around adult-centric expectations and norms is something that we need to, in scientific paradigms, intervene and change. How we're going to get there is, of course, different, but there is an agreement on what is it that we are doing here and what is our intervention in academia. And the social interventions are, of course, important, and they're important also the kind of interventions that come from youth and children as well, like the climate justice movement is a very important childist intervention at a political level. But there is a lot of work to be done within the academic and scientific discourses. So as a transformative movement, Childism began in the early 2000s within humanities and social sciences. And it's been applied across a variety of fields like Judaic studies, biblical studies, literary studies, girlhood studies, philosophy, political theory, citizenship studies, feminist studies, education, sustainability studies, global studies, and posthumanism. So the Childism Institute, which you mentioned in your introduction, the Childism Institute is an international independent research program shared between the University of Rutgers in the USA, Stavanger, where I'm based, and Roskilde in Denmark. And my own work alongside colleagues from the Childism Institute highlights how philosophical childism can function as a lens through which we can study developmentalism as well. You mentioned Piaget, so we're coming to that. And the social constructions of childhood. So these constructions of childhood, and we have to remember we can't have a construction of childhood without having a construction of adulthood. So they are interdependent. So if you're studying a construction of childhood, which is also a lot what childhood studies, the field that Cécile also mentioned in the welcome section, childhood studies a lot about the constructions of childhood, but what happens to the adult constructions that are dependent on those constructions? This is important to analyze as well. So what childism would do is deconstruct these and challenge them for placing children and childhood. So children as those who are identified as that group, but childhood as a structure, which we all pass through, and so it challenges that for placing children at a disadvantage. And in this way, childism is pushing us to see these dynamics beyond the child-adult binary. So it challenges this age-based binary thinking. And it's not easy. I often do a very bad job at not thinking in binary ways myself. It's not easy, but we're aware that we make that intellectual or cognitive move of thinking in binaries, and that's also a very important part of the work, just to show how is it that you think in binaries, how does that influence our relations and understanding of society. So like I said, adult centrism, which is what childism addresses, doesn't have implications only for children, and it also has implications for adults, but also in general marginalized groups that have historically been categorized as childlike. So this includes the indigenous peoples, formerly colonized groups, disabled individuals, or other, otherly abled individuals, all of whom have experienced what we call infantilization. So infantilization, I am arguing, is in itself an adult-centric term. So I'm going to call it adultist infantilization. Because it's based on the idea that the infant, coming from infants, not being able to I won't say, yes, speak, but like talk like I'm talking and we are talking here, not being able to do that particular performance, it makes you an inferior, or it puts you in an inferior state compared to certain developed states of adulthood. And this thinking it's almost like it's bleeding into how societies treat other marginalized groups. So an example of thinking developmentally, now I'm going to transfer it to another context. We often refer, let's say, to European countries as developed countries, and countries that are developing, which have formerly been colonies or are not European or white majority countries, are often seen as developing countries because they're not at a certain state of development. It's the same logic, same logic. So when you're thinking in a childist ways, you are challenging developmentalist logic, and it need not be about children as a group. It's relevant, but we have to broaden, we have to think of what logics are we engaging with here. So now the metaphor, the figure of the child as a metaphor. It has been examined at the intersection of adultism and coloniality, and Sebastian already mentioned some of this in his talk. There is a political philosopher called Toby Rollo, also who contributes to the Childism Institute. Toby Rollo has done much more deeper analysis on this intersection of coloniality and adultism, or also racism and adultism. So attributes like primitive, emotional, subjective, or free have been associated with childhood, and by extension with certain marginalized groups. And this has a particular relevance for understanding how adultist infantilization operates within systems of power. So just as gendered and racial terms have been used to marginalize, labeling someone as childish or infantile serves as a form of control, reinforcing certain hierarchical structures. And I'll also very soon show you an image to talk about how this can be mobilized by adults. Even important political interventions can capitalize on this way of understanding infantilization. So, but first I will go to one of the central contributions of childist theory, which is its emphasis on deep interdependence. And I don't think any of the childists or me claim that we are the only ones talking about interdependence. Yes, the feminists have talked about it, post-humanists talk about it. So it is shared across different developments, philosophical developments that take difference as a premise for understanding relations. And what childism does is also learns from childhood and the way children can teach us something through their existence about deep interdependence. So here too, what we are challenging is the binary between dependent children and independent adults. Because it's never going to happen. We're never going to be fully independent in the way that we've been promised or believe that we will be. We will always be interdependent, and it will make life a bit easier if we just accept that and start living that interdependence. But we are interdependent in different ways. So it's not about making children into adults or saying now they're, we're like children. It's not, we stay different, but we stay differently interdependent. So we can think of how, no matter at what age we are, there will always be a multi-dimensional interdependence. So a horizontal interdependence between the equals, and a vertical interdependence between those who have more power in a certain system. So we are always in this axis in different ways, and there is always an interaction of vertical and horizontal interdependence. What children, and particularly very young children, babies, can reveal is that it's not simply that they're dependent on adults, but all human beings are profoundly and universally reliant on one another. And as I already said, this challenges the modern myth of the self-sufficient, independent adult, a myth that childism argues creates a false adultist consciousness. By falsely separating the adult from the child, we uphold adult power and dismiss the dependencies that are inherent to all human beings. Admitting these dependencies, childism suggests, should not only be seen as a weakness, but as a recognition of our existential condition, which not only depends on other human beings and human structures of various age groups, but also more than human worlds, which Yves Bonardel's work also shows. So this worldview recognizes that all people are interconnected, and it challenges also binaries like the independent colonizer and the dependent colonized. And childism builds on this, insisting that people are interreliant precisely in their differences, and that social inclusion depends on our ability to acknowledge and embrace these differences. So inclusion and exclusion are always being negotiated. So recognizing the difference, and it takes a lot of time to recognize difference. We also get stuck there, and we get painfully stuck in our own ability not to be able to recognize difference, in an embodied way, not just, intellectually, where we say, yeah, we're all different, and we figured that out. But it's not that easy. There is always the tension is always quite strong, but this is a precondition for those negotiations to happen, the negotiation between inclusion and exclusion. And that's the movement that, understanding misopédie and also deconstructing adult centrism is doing through childist lenses. So deep interdependence also requires how we rethink time. Time is a very important concept when you are understanding childhood and adult relations. So the modern obsession with speed and productivity and are measured in clock time and calendar time, because it's, things can be fast and slow, but it's defined with a certain clock. So this is a direct contrast with slow and relational temporalities that interdependence demands. So you see, when you say I recognize difference, you have to also recognize different temporal needs, and that causes tension. So what in my work I have argued for the importance of embracing slowness, not as a rejection of modern efficiency. I also really love the clock for some reasons, and for some reasons I don't. But childism, it's not to reject modern efficiency, but it's to expand our capacity to experience wider and multiple temporal horizons. So not to get just stuck in one linear, so it's to be able to move between different temporalities. And we have that capacity somewhere, but we've not expanded that. So childism encourages us to adopt plural, coexistent temporalities, recognizing that different people and at different life stages require different paces. So this aligns with indigenous principles like the seventh generational principle from North America, which asks us to consider how our actions and decisions today will affect 7 generations in the future, as well as 7 generations in the past. You know, so that's a different way of orienting ourselves in this world, if you think of these temporal considerations. So if we accept this understanding of time, it becomes clear that current systems which prioritize speed and efficiency are reducing adult capacity to do slow work, to do deliberate work of building and sustaining meaningful interdependent relationships. So note that my emphasis here is on highlighting how adultist structures impact adult worlds too. It impacts our capacities to build and sustain relations. And there is something there's something we can learn from childhood by engaging with children and childhood. So there is that possibility that childist philosophy offers to start also orienting to learn from childhood, which then doesn't mean that now we turn children into adult teachers within the same, current educational logics. No, it's not as simple as that. But the lives of young children, infants, particularly babies, offer a very sharp contrast to the dominant narratives and structures of speed. So engaging with children can remind us, and also physically if you are close to children, that time is not just linear adult-centric experience, but it can be cyclical, it's relational, it's deeply intertwined with multiple and contrasting lived experiences, and that can include lived experiences of other species too. So engaging with life from a childish standpoint is, we have to constantly work to make space for these slower, more plural experiences of time within the current linear time regime. So now some of the political implications of this, where traditional modern European theory tends to frame power as something individuals possess independently, and post-structuralist theory focuses on how marginalized groups empower themselves by asserting their difference. There's also that power is shared and not constant in one place. Childism is trying now to offer a third way or a different path, which is that power can be shared through processes of empowered inclusion. So this means that marginalized groups, including children, are not simply empowered by asserting their difference, but through mutual recognition and interdependence with others. So there is this collective interdependent dimension to empowerment in the childist approach. So the concept of infantilization now, this as a social phenomena is not just about how we treat children, but how societies project helplessness onto marginalized groups, as I said already, by using insults like childish or babyish. But we also see this in political discourse when leaders can be characterized as babies. So I'm going to quickly open a window on the, I just need to go to the browser. All right, so.
No, Trump.
Yeah. Right. Okay, let's... Okay, you see this image here? That's Donald Trump being infantilized, and that's obviously not a marginalized group, you know. This is a very interesting use of how infantilizing is mobilized. Now, the baby Trump balloon it's a very important political symbol, which was used in protests in the US, but also in Europe, to reject Trump's authority. So just to make a political point that, you know, he is not capable, he shouldn't be a president, and, you know, okay, good point, but why do we need to present him as a baby in order to achieve this political goal, you know? And of course, it works, which tells us something about how misopédie is a political logic which doesn't directly apply to you know, children, but has social you know, ramifications like this. And it would just not be possible today to have a woman's body there, you know, saying that now we need Kamala Harris to be the competition for him. So we're in a different world now, but it's possible to put Trump on a baby's body. And here is something where deep interdependence also comes in. Babies are not going to be able to protest and say that, you know, we don't want our bodies and Trump to be used like this in public and so on. So there is this horizontal dependence. So they do depend, of course, on, you know, people in university meeting and discussing this and dissecting it and deconstructing it and understanding why this might not be okay. So we will have to analyze and speak on behalf of groups, so to say, and that is a very strong and peculiar interdependency when it comes to the vertical relation between babies and adults. So I'll just put away Trump now because it's... oh, that's your folder. Okay, I have it. How am I doing with time? Okay. I will wrap up soon if some. But we see the other aspect is also how infants, and this will especially happen in scientific theory, but also in practices, they are forced into a helpless dependence, always being represented as deficient, you know, and not able. So there is almost like a learned helplessness that comes into play when babies are positioned and also understood like that through scientific work. But Childism asks us to learn from the lived experiences of children, especially the youngest among them. And this aligns with the French phenomenological psychologist Maurice Merleau-Ponty, whose work in child psychology was a direct confrontation to Jean Piaget's developmental stages. And they both held the chair in child psychology in Sorbonne. But despite Maurice Merleau-Ponty's intervention and you know, contribution with phenomenology that that builds upon understanding human existence from children's being, it was more Piaget's developmentalism that became a popular foundation and still is, and you know, connects with Vygotsky, and they're like Bibles in educational studies. So they've become a very popular and important foundation for educational structures globally. So in my research, I engaged very closely with an infant named Ole, who gave me insights into how babies and toddlers navigate time and space, and it challenged my adult-centric norms. This also brings us to a bit of the methodological implications of childism, where childism calls for a suspension of adult-centric norms, including our obsession with clock time when we analyze, or even when we pick a research question. It's important to question which point of view are you asking a question from, or what point of view are you going to analyze it from. And then we can have perhaps methodological also possibilities to transform how we approach not only research, but also education, governance, social relations. So to conclude, childism, much like feminism and decolonialism, opens new spaces for social imagination. However, its focus on deconstructing adultism allows it to expand feminist and decolonial projects even further, pushing us to reconsider fundamental concepts like interdependence, empowerment, temporality. And childism insists on a more complex understanding of social relations, where all humans, regardless of age, are recognized for their irreducible differences and their mutual reliance on others, as well as on the non-human world. And without this reconstruction of adultism, the lives of children and other marginalized groups will remain largely invisible in our societies. And that's why the work, including the work of listening, which you have all been doing, is important. So thank you.